back to another episode of Pro Cuts, where we talk to pros in baseball and learn how they became pros. Pretty simple. And we got Rob Friedman here, pitching ninja and the founder of the FlatgroundApp platform. And today we have Griffin McLarty, who is from the College of Charleston, then drafted to the Orioles. And what was it, Griffin? When were you drafted?
I was the 8th round, first pick of the 8th round.
Awesome. And you are from where originally?
I am from Buckner, Kentucky. It's just a suburb of Louisville, Kentucky, so just outside Louisville.
Well, I knew you were from the Midwest because we see you were in the Little League World Series in Williamsport wearing the Midwest jersey. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was actually Team Great Lakes, so I mean, it's pretty close, same-ish regions. But yeah, back in 2011.
So I'm wrong already.
I was going to say, Louis, I don't think Kentucky is the Midwest.
Right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. I love it. All right. Perfect. Now we're ready.
Awesome.
To go.
No, we're keeping that one.
Oh, we're definitely keeping that.
Yeah,
All
okay.
Right. So whatever, Great Lakes, you said. Okay, got it. All right, here we go. Well, they have, by the way, in my defense, they now have like 17 different regions.
There's 8. It can get mixed up pretty easily. So.
Yeah, but in no world is Kentucky in the Midwest.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Griffin. So tell us about that Little League World Series experience.
Yeah, so it was 2011. We were kind of a small town underdog team that made our way through the districts and states and all that kind of stuff. And we went to Indianapolis and won the Great Lakes region. So we were able to go to Williamsport to compete on the main stage. And we ended up going only 1 and 2 in the whole thing, but just the experience in general is something you can never replace in your baseball career, especially as a young kid. And me being the kid who pitched the first game we won, it's actually my story that I'll always live with for the Williamsport experiences. I pitched our first game and I threw a complete game, 6-inning shutout, and I hit a solo home run in the first inning, and we won 1-0. So, and it was in front of a Pennsylvania crowd because we were playing Pennsylvania, the Mid-Atlantic, I think it was. And at the time, it was the greatest, attendance to youth sporting events in the history. It was 41,848 people, and I pitched the whole game and hit a solo homer and it became 1-0. So it was kind of a cool experience.
So, and this is something that I don't think, I mean, I hear a lot of people get, oh, well, what did he do after Little League? I mean, is that the highlight of his career? I'm a person I work with, their cousin is Dalton Carricker, who hit the home run against Japan. Pitched at, he was a stud pitcher. And I don't care. Like, if you don't do anything after that, doesn't matter. You're going to get a beer bought for you in every single bar in Georgia if you're a kid who they're showing on the Little League World Series promos. So how cool is that? And where does that rank even like on stuff you've done to date in your career?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it can easily get drawn out and people are like, oh yeah, whatever, that he was 12 years old and all that kind of stuff. So for some kids, as like their egos get bigger later on, it's like, oh, whatever, dude, like who cares? Like you're in high school now or you're in college now, but still it's like just going back to it. Like I'm still so just awestruck in that I had that opportunity, and it's still way up there, even though it was years ago now. And I really can't even remember it because I pitched and kind of just black out and I don't remember honestly, but just I can see the videos of me doing it on the replay, and we have like the DVD of the game and everything. And even watching it now, it's like you still don't even really believe it. So just seeing that and seeing how rare it is as an opportunity for a youth player, like it still has to be way up there for me.
Josh doesn't even remember the podcast from yesterday. So
yeah, I know, that's true. That's awesome, dude. I mean, that's something that any kid, any grown-up now who grew up playing baseball is jealous of. Like, there's no way. If they say they're not, they're lying,
Yeah. And it's kind of a cool fact because, like you said, it kind of loses its all a little bit as you get older. But even if you kind of throw it in there, like, oh, yeah, I played in that. People are like, are you kidding me? No way, that's sick. And, like, adults will cheer for it when it comes on. Unfortunately, it's canceled this year, but it's always a fun couple weeks of the summer just to watch these kids play around and get attached to a certain foreign team or something. It's just kind of interesting to watch. So
I mean, at the time, what is that like? Do you think as a 12-year-old that you are the coolest person in the world?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think because when you're like 8, 9, 10, whatever, that's like your whole world is as a baseball player. That's the favorite 2 weeks of the year is to tune into the Little League World Series on ESPN. So that's like the only thing you work for when you're a 12-year-old baseball player. For me, is to make Williamsport, and being able to do that is just so cool, I think.
So past Williamsport, we get into high school, and one of the things about you in high school is, I mean, you're fairly humble. You say you weren't a big prospect yet. You were recruited by, I believe it was Kentucky and Louisville. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So why did you end up with those two on the table going to the College of Charleston?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. It's just I had played in the whole summer ball circuit, as you probably many kids, and I had played in a tournament in South Carolina and drawn some interest from some Carolina schools, and Charleston being one of them. And they offered me just a visit to come leisurely tour around and all that kind of stuff. And if you've ever been to Charleston, you'd understand, but it's just an awesome place, and I felt comfortable with the staff and the facilities and the campus, and it just really felt like home to me. And being those in-state schools and all the walk-on stuff, like nothing against those programs, they're great programs, but and they're big Power 5 schools, that I just really wanted a opportunity and a chance to go somewhere where I really felt needed and somewhere that I could really contribute right away, where I was always confident in my abilities, whether I go to a big school like Louisville. But there's so many other great players that at the time it's like, geez, I'd really want to play, not get lost in the program kind of thing. So that's why Charleston really stuck out to me, because it's a really great baseball school, really great baseball program, but still an opportunity where I feel like I can grow and develop while playing, not just sit on the bench. So.
What travel program did you play for?
I played originally for a local Louisville team called Louisville Baseball Club, but I kind of talked with Joss about this on the phone the other day. Is come my junior summer, I changed over to a team called the Ironmen, which is a bigger, like more national thing that goes to the Atlanta tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And I'd kind of been told by these coaches who knew me, is like, yeah, you're a great player, and if you want to go where you think you can go, you have to start going to these big tournaments. So I played for a team called the Ironmen eventually my summer before senior year.
So would you say the travel program helped you along your way more than your high school program generally?
Well, yeah, in certain ways. And the development aspect, the high school program is perfect. Like it's about playing baseball at the end of the day, and the high school program obviously did that. But just in terms of the recruitment and getting to see all over the place, that you have to play that travel stuff for, like, when would Charleston have ever seen me play in Louisville, Kentucky, so you got to go to them almost, and go to those big hub places like in Marietta, Georgia, all those, everyone knows what that is now. So you almost have to do that to get a little bit of exposure if your goal is to play somewhere potentially out of state. So not everyone wants to do that, and if you play in state, the in-states will see you. But if you have any thought of going somewhere else, you kind of have to venture out a little bit yourself, or play for a team that'll help you do that.
And so you said you had, I know when we talked before, you have a younger brother that's in high school and going through the process right now. And you said that, you were, what was the word you used? Kind of the test dummy or whatever, the crash dummy for the recruiting process. And now your family feels like, okay, now we know how to do this. What does that mean? Expand on that. What do they know how to do now with your younger brother that maybe you didn't know how to do with yourself?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just the anxiety and the nerves of your first kid, because they have all the desires in the world to go play college ball. So once you see a kid go through it and understand that's going to be okay, it's going to run its course, and you're going to work it out. That once my brother, so he's now committed, but when he was going through the process like last year, that I think my parents especially, and him seeing what happened to me, they just calm down a little bit more and understand, like, hey, at the end of the day, it's about playing baseball, and who sees you is going to see you, and if you play well, you're going to be fine. So I think it's just the comfort in knowing that if you trust your abilities and just play the game how you know how to play it, that someone's going to eventually find you and it's going to work out. But also with that said, they understood that this Ironman team, which my brother then played for when he was of age, that we realized like, hey, that's kind of what you need to do if you want that to be a reality. So he jumped right on board when he could, where I had to wait a little bit longer because I didn't really know what the whole recruiting travel process was like. So he got a quicker leg than I did on that because he was able to jump right in it as a younger high school player, where I had to kind of wait to the end.
How stressful is that process? I mean, how stressful was it for you, your parents, and your brother? It sounds like your brother may be a little less stressful because you paved the way. But I know it's not that easy to navigate the whole thing.
No, it's not. And like I said, I didn't know anybody that really played college baseball. I was just a kid who enjoyed playing and was good at it, but I didn't know anything about recruiting or showcases or that. I just liked to play the game. So a lot of it was just new to me, but it never really stressed me out. I just enjoyed playing, and it was fun to play in different parts of the country and be seen by other people. And it was really just more exciting, but it is stressful as a family, I think, but it's all good stress. It's not bad stress. So it's, at the end of the day, it's just playing baseball. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time, but it's a time that every college player went through, or anybody who plays in college went through. So there's a lot of guys that know that feeling.
You were a two-sport athlete, basketball and baseball in high school. I always ask the question for guys who have been through it, because there is a lot of debate nowadays, like when should a kid ever give up that second sport, right? So do you think there is a time of, hey, you know what, I have a chance to go far in baseball, so it's time to give up basketball or football or whatever it is? Or do you think just play the two sports as long as you can, it's good for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line between that. I'm still a firm believer in playing two sports is pretty beneficial, just because baseball, you can't develop every asset of your athleticism in baseball. Like, you have to do other activities to improve your overall athleticism and just muscle memory and all that kind of stuff. So for me, playing basketball, once I got deep enough into the baseball recruiting process, I knew I was playing basketball, and I almost just played, however, I was playing baseball, I almost just played basketball just for fun. But I do think it's important to, especially knowing you're going to play, still work hard on your baseball activities in the off season. So you have to be true to yourself and understand, like, hey, I can't just slack off from baseball in the off season just to play basketball. Like, if I want to do this for real, I still have to work on strength and work on my pitching and hitting, whatever you're going to do. You can't just disregard that and say, oh, it's April now, I guess we'll start swinging the bat. Like, you gotta be doing that all off season, even while you're playing basketball. But I do think it's still beneficial to play both.
So just curious, what parts of playing basketball do you think translate well towards pitching? There's the athleticism, maybe some of the mental game about making a clutch shot. Is there anything that particularly stands out?
Not necessarily. I think, especially when you're a young kid, still, you're not even matured yet. I think just overall athleticism, jumping and running and twisting and turning, that stuff's important. Like, if you're not a full developed like man yet, like, you might as well try everything and work on everything. So it's a good way to find some strength in other things necessarily without weightlifting and all that kind of stuff. So playing sports is really the only way to do that. So I think before you get to college where you have to pick one, like, why would you not at least sample some other sports through high school? And if you're good at it, keep playing, So I think that's why it's so important.
I did want to ask you one question that I forgot to ask you before. When we talked about you were recruited by Louisville and Kentucky and you decided to go to the College of Charleston, one thing I talk about a lot with young guys is, I guess we're kind of on the topic now of making that decision, is you're never going to feel 100% sure that you've made the right decision, right? Like, that's not going to happen until you're actually on campus, actually living the life, and you see how it goes. Like, you can't be positive before you get there. I think one thing recruits want is like, I'm not sure still. I'm not 100% sure. You're never going to be 100% sure, right? And I think you said it took you till like junior year before you knew you made the right decision. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's always for any kids that goes to college, whether you play a sport or not, I think whether you go to a school 20 minutes away or 10 hours away, it's still a big change in your life. So yeah, going to a mid-major school, there's plenty of upsides, and then yeah, like you just enjoy the experience. But once I got to my junior year, it became clear to me that like I really made the right decision. I've embraced my atmosphere. Like, this is my team and this is where I want to be. And you have to be fine with that because there's no going back, you know? So yeah, my junior year, I was like, I almost came to a realization like, wow, like I'm so happy I chose where I'm going to be, because look at how much I've developed and look at all the opportunities I have that, yeah, maybe I could have had them somewhere else, but I have them now. So why does it matter? So I was really happy with my decision in Charleston, and yeah, I'll never regret it.
You struggled with gaining weight and strength. You said for a long time, or during high school. You said that was one of your biggest challenges, and I think that that's something that a lot of kids face today. How did you deal with that and eventually kind of work your way through it, overcome it, to put on the weight that you wanted and the strength that you wanted?
Yeah, it's really just more of a mental thing, and telling yourself to be patient and know over time, like it's going to eventually come. Like, you can't force it when you're 16 years old and tall and skinny like I was. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. That's just how your body is. But understand how to use your body the best way at the place it's at, and then just understand that it's going to work its course. And if you stay persistent and do what you're supposed to do, that you're eventually going to put on the strength, and you're just going to naturally mature as a man. That's just how life works, you know? So I started to see that a lot in college, that I'm finally starting to put on some strength that I never really had in high school. But I mean, you're a high school kid, so it's not super expected of you. But if you're an athlete, it can be frustrating for some kids.
Help me understand your, like, for example, your velo development. Were you a velo guy? Were you a command guy? How did you develop over time, and what are you working on today?
Yeah, so growing up, like I always threw fast for my age, but it was never, once I got to high school, it was never like some crazy velo. Like if you're throwing 86, 87, 88 as a high school junior, like that's pretty fast still, but it's not like these kids throwing 92, 94 or something. So when it came to the grand scheme of recruiting, like, yeah, I was still a little tick under on velocity, but I knew that, and I took pride in my command, and I always have, and I still do, that I understood that I was a command pitcher, but still had enough velo to survive, but I wasn't surviving on velo. But then once I got to college, it's just more of a strength thing like we just talked about. But nowadays I understand that my command is there, but now it's the time to really add on the velo. I'm a matured, strengthened guy that it's time to put on the velo. So it's not necessarily something that ever hurts me, but everyone wants to throw harder, you know? So I think that's just the general long-term goal, is to slowly add velocity, but it's nothing that really worries me because I'm okay where I'm at, but it can always get better.
Yeah, I see a lot of guys who, most folks will concentrate more on velo when they're younger because it's kind of, I guess it's a bigger muscle movement type thing, less finer muscle command and stuff. And kids struggle with command. I mean, naturally will struggle with command. It's kind of interesting to see the reverse path. I've seen some kids do it. I know Landon Knack at ETSU was a command guy and then developed velo late, and it's like 98 now. Do you think there are some advantages to developing velo late and command first?
Yeah, I mean, I think because that's all I know, because that's how I was. And I see some amateur players now who praise velo so much, and okay, that's great, you can hit 93 in a bullpen, but when you go to pitch in the game, you're not going to be throwing that max effort, and if you don't know how to throw a strike, it doesn't translate super well. So that's just how I developed. I didn't ever stress myself out about trying to hit a certain number. I just pitched and learned how to pitch where I'm at, and understood that the velo will eventually come if you keep working at it, not learn how to throw fast and then throw strikes. It's throw strikes and then build on top of that. So I think that's just the path that worked best for me. And some guys may do it another way, but I think at the end of the day, pitching is pitching. It's not throwing as fast as you can. Clearly, velocity is super important, but I think commanding the baseball, regardless of how the game is changing, will always be important. So I think I take pride in that the most.
Help me understand what do you throw as a secondary pitches?
I threw a slider and changeup, and I'm working on a curveball that I've been throwing ever since I got drafted. But in college, I really survived heavily on fastball, slider, and then just throwing some changes every now and then. But now, since I'm probably getting formed into be more of a starting pitcher, that adding that fourth pitch is pretty important. Just because also the curveball works well off my fastball, so just that's something that they have me working on to just slowly develop over time.
So you're throwing elevated fastballs and a curveball off that? Is that?
Yeah, because even though I'm not crazy velo, I'm just fortunate enough that just the way I throw the ball, I have that good, true 12 o'clock rising spin, and I've always had that in my toolbox. So I don't know how that's just how I throw it, and that's always been my weapon. So I've always just kind of survived on a good heater in, out, up and down. So
when did you know? That's a lot of kids don't realize that. A lot of coaches, I mean, I'm sure you were preached this too. Live at the knees, don't elevate. That's what kids are told throughout their whole growing up, travel teams or whatever. When did you realize your elevated fastball played, and when did you have coaches encourage you to throw that?
It was really just once I got to college, because like you said, as an amateur player, like growing up and in high school, it's kind of just the old cliche, keep the ball down and all that kind of stuff. But once I got to college, I started to realize it myself, and this was way before I was ever introduced to all the TrackMan kind of stuff. It's just what I can see is that I can throw the ball up in the zone, and I do better than most people doing that. So like, why is that? And then just kind of slowly starting to learn about how all this stuff works and all the numbers and stuff, that there's a reason why your fastball is different than someone else's, and why some people throw up in the zone on purpose, and clearly the game is super transformed into that method now, where there's a lot of guys who are big on the high heater and the downer curveball, where that's a big way to pitch these days. But it hasn't been around for too long. So it was interesting to just kind of learn about that in college and understand, like, hey, I'm a fastball pitcher who just throws it in there, and who cares if it's up in the zone, because it plays well for me.
So when you were coming up, I talked to Coach Dorton at College of Charleston, and he's the one that set this up. And we were talking about it, and he just found you so interesting on how you pitched like 110 innings. You were an All-American. You managed to go a complete game shutout against Georgia, all with just two pitches, fastball, slider, and the fastball was 89 to 91. So, he just says the command was just so elite at that time for his age that he was able to do that. How do you get the command to be at that level, though, at that age? Like, what were you doing to build that kind of elite command?
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that you just slowly work on ever since you start throwing a baseball when you're 10 years old and pitching off the mound. But I'm still a really big firm believer that there's a lot of intent in catch play. So every time you throw a baseball, you have the opportunity to work on your command. And that's what I tell people that ask a similar question to that, is when you're just playing catch, you're not playing catch just to get your arm loose. You're playing catch to warm up and to work on your command. So I think if you just take pride in every single ball you throw, whether it just be a random practice or getting ready for a bullpen or before the game, that you have to take pride and mentally focus on each and every rep you have, because everyone knows as a pitcher, they're very limited. So you have to take advantage of every single throw you have. And I think it's not an impossible skill. So if you just mentally can lock in and do it, I think it'll help people out a lot in just developing overall command, and especially with the heater. I think if you just take pride in your catch play, there's really no excuse to not have great fastball command. Like, the secondary pitches are their own deal, but if you play catch with a purpose, then you should be able to throw a fastball almost wherever you want, and that's what I think.
So you started talking a little bit about the mental game, and I know catch play is part of it, making sure every rep counts. What other things do you focus on in the mental game? How do you deal with stress? Are there any tricks that you use or developed?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in your bullpens, just kind of a simulation of kind of visualizing base runners or visualizing situations and throwing in the dummy hitter of like facing a lefty, facing a righty. And yeah, really, I don't have very many tips on that because that's just a part of the game that's always made sense to me. I've always been fortunate enough to just control the small things and never get super stressed when I pitch. But like I said, it all starts in your preparation. That if you don't prepare the right way, then you're going to lose a lot of control when you go to compete. So what I always think and what I always tell myself is if you just focus in the 6 days you're not pitching, then the day you do pitch becomes a lot easier, and it's more fun than it is stressful. So that's what I always say.
When you don't have a 97, 98 mile per hour fastball, though, and you're working really off that elite command, what do you do when the command's not there that day? How are you getting by?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's still that nature of just competition in baseball that sometimes you're not going to always have your A grade stuff and you got to compete with your C stuff that day. So that's a big aspect of pitching that can be underrated, that the competitiveness within a pitcher really can separate him, because even guys like Jacob deGrom, like he's not going to have his A stuff every single time he goes out there, but you find a way to win with your average stuff. So I realized that through college, and that's a big thing I learned in college, where in high school I kind of dominate through every single game where you don't sometimes learn too much in your starts. But the part I enjoyed the most about college is winning a gritty game where yourself, you don't have your best stuff, but you never let anybody else know that. Like you still have the same demeanor, same competitive edge, and just go after it. And if you let the hitter know, like, oh crap, I don't have my best stuff today, then you're done. So you got to always just keep that same demeanor and go after it with your best, whatever you have that day. That's all you can do.
Yeah, Arrieta used to always talk about it's like acting. You have to, if you act the part, even if you don't have your stuff, eventually the hitter perceives it, and you end up recovering if you can just play the part well. What pitchers do you look up to along those lines?
Yeah, Justin Verlander was always my favorite baseball player growing up, because actually before I moved to Louisville, I lived outside of Detroit, so I was always a Tigers fan. And at the time he was on the Tigers. Yeah, that's where Great Lakes is from. Yeah. So I liked him, and he's getting to the end of his career, but he was always my guy, because he was even though he throws a lot harder than I do, but just that true good fastball, good spinning fastball, and I always just kind of liked watching him play.
Rob, you got anything else?
Yeah, I was curious. We've been talking a little bit about your slider. Do you have a baseball there? I'd love to see your grip if you got it. Yeah. Awesome. Show me your four seamer, since you got nice spin rate rising action to it, and then let's see your slider.
A lot of guys throw on this part of the four seam, but I do the opposite. I'd go on this side, and I don't have the biggest hands, so I don't know if that plays a role into that. But I'm kind of like a thumb tucker. I can put my thumb under the ball, if you can see that, and I just let it rip, and then slider is on the U here, and on that part right
here. Trying to look around my microphone.
Yeah, right here. And then change up, same spot pretty much as the fastball, just a little more tilted, so I can get this middle finger to that seam so I can feel the inside of the ball, just to try to get the pronation and the side spin. And then a curveball up on that part here, and a lot of pressure on this middle finger, and this one's just kind of here just to stay in control. And then my thumb on that bottom seam, and then you just kind of rip it down.
So in the short time that you've been around professional baseball, looking ahead, what is it that you're going to need to master in order to become a Major League Baseball player?
I think, like I said, just the true consistency of the third and fourth pitch, especially as a starting pitcher, is like everything, because some relievers get by with 2 pitches, but they throw 100 miles an hour, So if you're going to be a starter who wants to go 6, 7, 8 innings every time you throw, you have to have 4 pitches. So it's really the sharpening up all those extra pitches you have and going off of that. But fortunate enough, in pro ball, there's a million tools to help you and great coaches. And I've learned so much already just in my short season. So it's unfortunate I'm not doing it right now, but just in a couple months of playing last summer, I learned so much. And like I said, I started to put some of those numbers together of why pitches do this and why hitters react a certain way. And these graphs show you all that stuff. So it's so important just to play the game. But at the end of the day, at the next level, you have to understand how to utilize these tools that we now have in baseball to enhance your game even more. So that's a part that I'm really interested in getting better at and understanding, and how those graphs and stuff will help me understand my secondary pitches.
What are you doing now to stay sharp?
Yeah, so luckily for me, I have my brother here to throw, and so we can throw every single day we ever need to. I got a little home gym and places to run, places to throw, and that's all we really have. I have a little makeshift bullpen so I can go off a slope. So yeah, like you said, it's just kind of a standby, staying ready, and hoping for the best to salvage something here soon and get going again.
Well, Griffin, I really appreciate it. I know Rob really appreciates it. It's always good just to, it's just so interesting. It doesn't matter how many guys we talk to, everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
There's something to learn from everybody, right? Whether the story is different or the way they go about their business is different. It's fun, it's educational, it's good stuff. And we look forward to following you through the Orioles organization and hopefully having you back on here soon to do some more of this, and you'll be a major leaguer by that time, right?
Yeah, hopefully that's the plan.
Don't big dog us when you're up in the big leagues, man.
Yeah, well, I'll remember today. Don't worry.
Well, don't worry. We will remind you if you don't remember.
Okay.
Remember that time? Yeah, exactly.
See you, Griffin. Thanks, man.
See you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.